Talk about being reactive and proactive. Take us into the mental of Dan Lanning when you're down 34-10 going into halftime against Ohio State.
Ooh, tough, man. Tough. And I think the easy thing in those moments, especially afterwards, is like, let me make excuses of why, right? But if you're a growth mindset guy, right, if you're wired like we are here, to me, it's like, how do I make sure this doesn't happen again, right? You got to learn from that moment. Right. And as rough as it is. Now, on the same note, in the middle of the game, what am I saying? Hey, I remember Georgia-Alabama game earlier this year. It wasn't close, man. And those guys came back in the second half. And we certainly played a lot better in the second half than we did in the first. But I'm that guy that I want to fight until there's, no time left on the clock. So that's the mindset. When you leave that game, after the game's over with, you're like, okay, how do I make sure that doesn't happen again? Ohio State is an unbelievable team, really well coached. Coach Day did an unbelievable job this year, but, they're going to have a ton of guys drafted. They had a lot of success. So we had a lot of guys go on to the next level. There are things that they did in that game that we didn't prepare our players well for, right? And that's the part. Like, can you take the medicine? Can you figure out what didn't go right? Right. But if you're wired the right way, right? We're watching Houston the other night and you're watching, Coach Sampson's been coaching for a long time. That guy's deserving of a national championship. How hard he's worked. He's never touched it. It shows you how hard it is for it, to get. Like, so hard to get. But if you're motivated the right way, those moments, those are growth moments. That's a chance to say, okay, I'm going to go improve.
Yeah. Did that medicine last a little bit longer? Just knowing
that medicine. I wake up every night about that medicine. Like, before we struggled early on beating Washington in when I first started here, and we were able to get over that hump. Right, we were able to beat them this past season. Right now, I wake up thinking about that Rose Bowl game and didn't do it the way I wanted to do it. So it motivates me. Right, it makes me hungry to go back to work.
If you take it like you took accountability, it's like, we weren't ready. We didn't have our guys prepared. Yeah. Now that we've made that very clear, do you think having that long of a break for you guys hurt you at all?
Yeah, there's certainly, I'll never make an excuse, but there's certainly things that you'd say, okay, how would I do this different preparing for that moment? It's a lot different when you're playing a game every single week. And I think there's a lot of things that college football is still trying to figure out. There's a reason the NFL playoffs are the way they are, right? There's been a lot of people doing playoffs for a long time in a lot of sports. It feels like we just decided we're always going to do it a little bit different than everybody else. And it's like, how about we just follow the model that exists? It's a pretty good model.
Right. The model is play the championship weekend or the Big Ten championship, or don't even have the Big Ten championship. And that following week, have your bye weeks for the first couple of seeds and then go on.
Get to play the next week. Right. But yeah, having a long break, I've always been an advocate for football season should end. College football season should end January 1st. That's when the next semester starts, right? If that means everybody starts week 0, I've always been an advocate of, stay in a rhythm, play on Saturdays, right? Let's finish the champion. Why is championship game on a Monday? Like those are things I don't completely understand, but I'm sure there's some dollar signs behind it, and it is what it is.
Was it difficult, like knowing that you had 3 weeks off on how to go about the preparation?
Yeah,
and when you look back, it's like, what are things that you might mess with differently?
Yeah, there's certainly some stuff that I'll tweak. I won't get in the weeds about what we do different, but I met and visited with a lot of people on, hey, how would this look? But it was the first time for everybody. Nobody experienced a college football playoff like that before, and there's some things we'll do different, in the future. But you adapt. You put the best plan together you think makes sense. And then you adapt and adjust based on what wasn't good.
Is there a piece of you that blames the University of Michigan for waking up that giant, beating them 13-10?
No, I blame Oregon, man. We didn't take care of business.
You see them. They kind of really opened up the playbook after they took that loss 4 years in a row, by the way, if any Ohio State fans are watching, to Michigan. And then all of a sudden, they were like, their hair was caught on fire. They were hot. They got hot. And a piece of me really, truly feels that they wouldn't even got past Tennessee if they were just beat Michigan the way they should have beat them. Care to comment?
Yeah.
There's a piece you wish they would have knocked a late game-winning field goal early in the season, so that way maybe the motivation or momentum would have shifted.
No, man. Yeah. No, a piece of me wishes we won.
Is there a piece of you that feels like it was a bit of karma because you continue to keep scoring on Michigan when you played them in the big house?
No.
And then and you want to pretend like I didn't hear that little shot you took in front of the team today, too.
What are you saying?
I won't say what it was. You've been very gracious.
We're all competitors, right?
We're all competitors.
You want to win every single time you step on the field.
But you did say, there was somebody here that played for University. You saw what we did to him this year. Very light, very comical, great timing. You got a good group of boys that laugh.
Take shots, man.
Yeah,
small leg.
Fun.
It's nice.
Balls. That first Ohio State game, the 12 players on the field.
Yeah.
Can you talk to us about it? Because I think there's a new rule now, yeah?
There is a new rule. Can't do it anymore.
The Lanning rule.
Wow. I mean, ultimately, you work unbelievable. Like, you guys saw in our walkthrough today, we worked like into game situations. Like, okay, the difference in 10 seconds left in the game versus 6 seconds or 5 seconds in the end of the game and how your calls are going to change. I mean, you prepare for so many inordinate situations, right? And there's one where you get an opportunity to call a timeout, try to get, a little bit of an advantage, and time's more valuable at that point in the game than yardage, right? And it worked out, but now it's a different rule, so we can't do it anymore.
How were you able to kind of expose that rule? Like, was that something you came across kind of that years prior, something situational that obviously you bring up throughout the year, but when was the moment where you're able to be like, hey, if this pops up, like this is something where we can leverage this rule in our favor?
I think, Vrabel always did it with like you guys, you're looking for every advantage you can create, right, in football, whatever the rule might be. Like you see a lot more often now, defensively, let's say it's like a 4-minute situation. You got to get the ball back for the offense, right? There's a 5-yard penalty, right? And now it's 1st and 5. But the reality is you don't feel like you could probably stop a 5. They got 4 downs to get 5. I'm going to jump off sides, give them an automatic first, right? So we can get the clock back to an advantage for us defensively. So like there's moments where you might intentionally jump off sides. You talk through all those scenarios where a penalty makes sense, where it's better to get a pass interference in this situation than to give up a big play, right? And then you get to a certain level of field. We spend time on those every single week, right? As a coaching staff, some of them show up a lot more often than others. But we have a group that really works with us when it comes to analytics and when's the right penalty to take, what's the wrong penalty to take. And when you have a team, right, that's able to assess those situations, you can attack it.
Do you have like a one guy that kind of really looks in those details for you? Like you brought up Vrabel. Vrabel's got a guy named John Stryker,
right?
Who
legend.
He's a legend, but he was the guy that would bring these types of situations. And one of the situations that was a rule change after was 2019 wild card game, Titans versus Patriots, and we killed the clock a bunch on punt team because we took a delay game twice. And then a false start, and that killed a bunch of time off the clock. Bill Belichick's on the other side, screaming his face off, while Vraves is quietly laughing and thinking about hitting his jewel after the game. Right. So that ends up changing. But Stretch is the guy that brings all that to him. Do you have somebody you're like, hey, I need you to find the gray area rules so we can exploit them?
So we have a couple guys instead of having just one guy that's in charge. I've always kind of found it's just like you have a defensive coordinator, you got a co-DC, right? So we have a couple guys that are help with those situations. I like the designated guy on offense and defense, and then just like overall personnel that's evaluating that, throughout games. And then on like Thursdays, I like to play the game with the coaches before the game. So Thursday's really kind of our last heavy practice, right? After that's over with, we'll throw on a TV copy of a game, right? Of an opponent that we're about to play. If we're playing them at home, right, we'll watch one of their away games, right, on TV. And then a lot of those situations will come up. So you're just talking through it as a staff, right? Like, Will, what openers do you like here? And he's calling the offense like he'd call the offense. But now you're also saying, all right, 3rd and 1, we see this as a go. You're trying to make those decisions before you get to game day. That way when you get to game day, it's kind of like smooth sailing. Like, always trying to create those moments in practice, that 4-minute, 2-minute scenario that we had in practice yesterday. Like we're trying to decide, is this a scenario where we would use our timeout? So our players, if you come and ask them in the room, like, hey, when does Coach Lanning like to use his timeouts? They're like, okay, around 30 to 35 seconds. If we have 3 timeouts, that's where he likes to use it. So now, like when you step on the field, you know what our temperament's going to be, right, in those situations. You're not, and you make mistakes at practice, but that's where mistakes have to happen. But if we're all on the same page, right, that's where, it becomes advantageous.
And last year when the 12th player one, did the 12th player know what was happening? Or are you like, hey, go stand out there?
No, we call it timeout.
Go stand out there until we say.
Protect the sideline. Just kind of say, hey, it's not one of those ones you're going to spend a ton of practice time on, right? We call coverage with inside leverage, and we threw an extra guy with outside leverage to the sideline.
But did that guy... Did you tell him, or you said, "Hey, just walk out there"?
He knew in the moment, but didn't really know it in the moment.
He didn't know situationally.
You don't practice that every single week. It wasn't a lot of clarity.
So I want to see if Vrabe had one like that too, where it was like Josh Kalu was on the sideline. He's like, "Josh, go out there and stand. Just stand out there by the numbers."
I think he did that against the Colts one year.
Well, sometimes you'll do that. Like, let's say you'd rather take a penalty, have 12 guys on the field if they're at the 3-yard line, right, and not have a no play happen, rather than us being the wrong formation or the wrong alignment or not everybody on the same call. Like, okay, give me half the distance to the goal so we get another chance to stop them. Right?
Does a piece of you smile when you get the 12 men on the field call and you feel the crowd like, oh, because you're such a huge part of the game. Like, no one knows what you're doing except for
Right.
you. And the people that truly know ball, there's like a little smile on your face. It's like, these idiots.
Yeah, and they're really
Shout
in the
out
back
the
of your mind,
committee.
you're saying, wait, I hope that is what we thought it was, right?
Yeah.
You're like, I hope we didn't screw that up, right? But I try not to think about what everybody else is thinking about in those moments.
Yeah. I mean, to think of that in that moment is just, it's good brain thinking.
We got a great staff here.
Yeah.
You're very polished in that regard, extremely polished. And I mean that as a massive compliment too. Like you're not a guy that's ever going to take credit. You're always,
I'm not playing in the game.
you're dishing. You're a point guard.
I'm not playing the game, right? We got great people here. Like everybody thinks about Oregon. They're like, oh, great facilities, awesome jerseys. All like, really, truly, the people here is what makes this thing different. And I got great people.